Baptiste, and I am the designer for Stardust Mass and Pan.
So what's your background and how did you get into making carnival costumes?
Well, I started doing costumes because of my father. My father was in Ebony Steel Band ever since I was a baby. I mean, I think he was on Carnival when my mum was giving birth to me, because I was born, 23rd of August, so right in the middle of Carnival. I grew up with Carnival being a big part of my life and Steel Band. So when I got to college age, I was showing more desire to do art and design. So my dad decided to give me a go making costumes. But actually, I started doing it when I was 12 years old. It was for Ebony, and it was when they did Indians, and I designed my mother's section. And then after that, when I was 18, I did for Stardust, which was my dad's main band. So yeah, it's been a big part of my life and my children's life as well.
So where do you get your inspiration from when you decide on the carnival theme?
My inspirations have come from many different areas. Like, I really was into like Peter Minshall and even Clary from Mahogany, because when I was young, she made costumes for my dad's band. I loved the way they structured their costumes, and I loved the storytelling of their costumes. I get a lot of inspiration from storytelling. So if it has a theme where it's about fruits, let's say, it could just be as simple as that, or it could be more on the lines of a historical piece, but it has to show through costume. So my inspiration comes from telling a story through the costume rather than it being just a pretty costume. And I'm quite a colourful person, so I quite like stuff that would pop on the road, from a mile away. So yeah.
What ideas have you had before?
I've had costumes that I've designed where some were ideas of my mum and dad, because when I started I was 18. So the first thing we did was It's Magic. And it was anything magical, and it was about the magic of magic, really, and how it could be portrayed in costume. That was my very first one. And then after that I did I did one called What a Disaster, and it was all about disasters, different types of disasters. I mean, it's not, back in those days I wasn't really thinking about the negative thought. I just thought that would be a great idea, but it was all to do with whirlwinds, typhoons and natural disasters, and making them into costumes. Recently, it was a while back, I did costumes based on themes of movies, and I tried to portray the movie through the costume. So we had Diamonds Are Forever, we had Moulin Rouge, we had Tutti Frutti. So there's loads of things that you could... No, not Tutti Frutti, it was Copacabana. And you could do so much with that in a costume, And I worked with Dance Carib, and we did something to do with the Garifuna tribe, and we did a whole thing to do with the British settlers and the tribes, and it was all played out on the road, and that was quite nice. So I'd like to do more things like that in the future.
Have you had any prizes, awards?
Yes, I have won like Kings and Queens, because back in the day we had the Carnival Splash. Spent hours making these gorgeous, huge costumes, and then we would all, compete to be the best king and queen. And I won a few of those. I won a few kings, queens, individuals as well. I won mostly in the children category. And there was one time I won best band on the road, which was a really big thing, as a collective. I had a theme called Tutti Frutti, and we were all different types of fruit going down the road. And that was the biggest I was. I had about 130 players in the band at that time. I actually quite like working with children, because children will kind of wear what you put them in if you said it to them. Adults are all right, but obviously as you get older you want to hide those little nooks and crannies that you don't want people to see, so people are much more self-conscious as they get older, as long as the costume makes somebody look beautiful. So I make for both, and each experience is different. The children are really cute when they wear their costumes, and they get a lot of oohs and ahs on the day. And then the adults, they're much more like, you just leave them to it. I like making for the adults because then you see it in a different context, the costume. The movement is much more, they come alive.
How have your practices changed over time?
It's changed a lot. I mean, when I first started being involved in Carnival, I used to help my mum, and back then it was just a bunch of Caribbean men and women getting together, and they're getting their friends, making costumes and turning up on the day. It's now become more of a money-making thing for a lot of people, because it stems from the Caribbean. So you've got in Trinidad, they make a lot of money from Carnival with barely any materials on the body. So back in the day when I started making costumes, we'd have to get a grant, and it was easier back then, but obviously with the climate changing, it became difficult for people to get grants, and subsequently like different bands, you know, folded. The way it's changed is that you have to run as a business now. Gone are the days of this community attitude of the past. I mean, you still have the community aspect, but it has to be run as a business.
So did you plan to do Carnival this year?
I did want to do Carnival this year because I thought it was a lovely round number, 2020. But unfortunately, COVID started to make an appearance, and I just thought the way things are going, it's probably better that I don't.
So how long beforehand do you need to start preparing costumes?
I'll say give yourself a good year. So if you're planning on making costumes, say most bands have already started with their next year, literally straight away after Carnival. They give themselves a break, but then September they're getting on with next year, because there's a lot of funding that you've got to do, and fundraising and organising for your year and getting all your monies sorted out.
If people wanted to contact you for next year, what would they need to do if they want to be part of the band?
There's a Stardust Mass, Stardust Pan and Mass, and a Stardust Steel Band Instagram account. So yeah, you're more than welcome to get through to us through that way. We've got our website being developed, so as soon as that's done, we will put that up on our social media so that you guys can contact us and see what we've been doing over the years, because we've been around for 30 years. So, you know, you'll have a more direct route to get in contact with us through that. But check our social media accounts out.
Okay. After each year of Carnival, what happens to your Carnival costumes?
They live with me. They live with me at home. My garage is a kind of shrine to costumes of past, and it's just know what to do with them. I think I've even got some costumes in my mum's loft.
Can we go and see some?
Oh yes, you can. Welcome to my Aladdin's cave.
Wow.
These were made in Trinidad. You know, so I designed them and they made them in Trinidad.
Okay.
So
how long would that take to send it back?
If I sent them the costumes in September, then they'll have them done by February for me. These ones were like my first costumes. Look at the camera.
Oh, amazing.
Handle it. But let me take one out. This one's one of my favourite early ones. I could improve on this, but I loved it. I just love the way when you move, it moves easy. You don't have to do much.
I love it.
Just, you know, shimmer, shake.
So what have you got there?
I have for my film theme, this is Finding Nemo, and it was a children's costume. So they all had googly eyes, and they looked so cute when they were all together. All these little fishes, you know, dancing away. And yeah, this was quite easy and light. It's a really light headdress, and it's made out of like a thin kind of, I don't know what it is, a thin strip of metal. But yeah, it's the typical kind of band with the crown where you place the costume on. Most costumes have that. It's the most simple way of making a headdress.
How easy is it to make different headdresses?
You know, there's so many different ways to do it. Most people, they'll have a piece here, so they'll have big feathers, you'll have probably something sticking out here.
Okay.
And then they'll have another piece in front, but I kept it simple. And if you want it really simple, headbands are always really good. Headbands, you know, they're ready-made. So, you know, what they did is they put the braid on it. You see, they just put the braid on it.
Oh, nice.
And then they wrapped wire around here, which they use. So when you're dancing, it's not static, it's moving, because you want things to move.
What are your plans for the future then?
I would love to continue Carnival, not just in a secular sense, like, just for Notting Hill. I'd like to teach kids and people how to create, because I think it's such a good thing to have, you know, to learn how to make something and see it kind of come to life. And yeah, I would love to do it more in an educational sense. So I'd love to have workshops. It's something that I'd like to do in the future more of, definitely. I'd work in the universities and just, you know, get them to think more character-based rather than oh, the feathers and, you know, the skimpy. It's not always about that. Even in Brazil, they have a story around those costumes, and we don't want to lose the story behind the costumes. It's not just about looking sexy and people dancing in, you know, in a very, you know, suggestive way. It's about what are they trying to teach us through our costumes, because that is really where it came from, the storytelling. And I feel that is being lost with all the beautiful feathers, which are absolutely gorgeous. You know, I have no problem with them, but I really wish that they have a big audience they could be doing much more with, and they're not really seeing that. I'd like to bring back a little bit more covered, but something that tells the story, you know.
Thank you.
Right.
Can you hear that plane, Rhonda?
Yes, come back.
Even inside.
I know. Can't escape them.